Jay, you sound a bit skeptical on what has happened. I mean, isn't even a détente a move in the right direction?
Oh, absolutely. No, actually, I think it's good directionally. I'm glad to see this type of progress. But it is interesting, as your reporter noted, that some of the real issues that have concerned manufacturers for years, intellectual property theft, forced transfer of data, those types of non-market-based, non-competitive policies are simply not sustainable in the eyes of manufacturers. So we're very pleased that the administration is, hopefully, we think, making progress on these issues, even if the Chinese are not willing to admit it at this point.
Meredith, should we be surprised that there are two different interpretations? I mean, we have to keep in mind that the Chinese president has to go home and make the case that he came away from this meeting strong as well. So perhaps not a surprise that he's not touting any sort of the demands that the president, our president, has mentioned as wins. I mean, he's got to come away from this looking good to his own people.
Well, he certainly does. And I think also that the differences in the statements that came out from both sides is also probably due to the fact that those statements were put together within days of that meeting. And usually it takes about a month, if not more, time for both sides to hammer out a statement. So the differences between the two is not really a surprise. But what we do have here is a crunch period. 90 days is not a lot of time to address some of the industrial and trade practices and issues that have bedeviled the U.S.-China relationship for years. And we saw today the announcement from the White House that USTR Lighthizer will be leading the negotiations from the U.S. side. What we can expect there is that Lighthizer will be laser-like focused on getting concrete actions from the Chinese rather than a continuation of statements or a continuation of China offering to buy more goods without actually addressing the real structural concerns that are at the heart of the 301 investigation.
Jay, I'm curious, on the intellectual property issue, we are asking the Chinese to change a behavior that's been going on for decades that has just bedeviled so many sectors of the United States economy. What is the quid pro quo, though? What do we have to offer in exchange for such a drastic change in their strategy, the Chinese, I mean?
Well, we have our market. I mean, we are the most consuming nation in the world, and China wants to be able to sell to us. And quite frankly, we have a lot of products that they would like to bring into their country as well. So look, we live in a global economy. We have to understand that, but we also need to make sure that we have rules of the road. It was one of the biggest mistakes, I think, that was made in the late 1990s when we adopted permanent normal trade relations with China. The rules of the road were not set in stone as they should have been, and we're starting to see the consequences of that now. So I think intellectual property, which is so vital to American ingenuity and innovation and progress in manufacturing, has to be the cornerstone of rules that we adopt for the future. It is the basis for manufacturing success in the United States.
So Meredith, Jay brings up a number of great points, and you laid out some of the concerns that we would have from a trade standpoint to negotiate with China. So take us through, as an advisor, if you were advising our team here in the United States about how to make progress on this front in the coming 90 days, what are the keys that we have to focus on to get a deal done, even though we know it's going to take a lot of time?
I would say get the right players in the room and focus on those core concessions in the 301 investigation that the U.S. team can sell to China as being in China's own domestic reform interests. Now, still, this is going to be a hard sell because, if anything, what we've seen from President Xi Jinping since the U.S.-China trade confrontation has ramped up is not so much an apparent willingness to make concessions on the very economic, industrial policy issues that he himself put together and that he himself believes is critical to China's own economic transformation. So you've got to make the case to Xi that these reforms will actually unlock greater value for China's own economy over the long run. But the key question is, will President Xi relinquish the kind of state control over China's economy that is necessary for some of those reforms to be pushed through?